All good, all good.
Okay. I think we are live in. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, okay, just make me the host then. I'll let everyone in.
Sure.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Creators of Products. I'm Divya. We are back with Culture and Code with Ajey sir. Today, we have two panelists with us, Harish and Abhinit. Both of them don't need any introduction, but I'll try my best. Harish is the head of design at CRED, and Abhinit is heading design and product at GoPay. Today, we'll be talking primarily about how we can iterate design, their journey, how they build amazing user experience, great products, and what were the hurdles they faced and how they did it. So if you have any questions during the session, feel free to drop them in the chat section. We'll also try and pick a few from the YouTube live, and we'll try and answer as many questions as possible. So without any further delay, over to you, Ajey sir.
Hey guys, welcome again. This is episode 3 of Culture and Code. First 2 episodes we talked about recruitment and design and org and whatnot. So I thought I should talk about more around one of the most important elements, one more part of code or one more code, and that and that is design. Design is the code for behavior. Okay, can I ask people to mute?
So nudges
Can we
will
keep
do that, right?
You can mute everyone actually.
Yeah, just mute.
मुंबई वाले कब वापस आएंगे?
Siva, can you make me the host? I'll mute everyone.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm planning to start execution. 3 people you want to
Security.
3 people? Correct. Who?
Mute. Is this better now? Wait.
I guess yes, it's quiet.
Yeah, I'll just add just a few people back and just give me one more second. Ajey sir.
Okay.
Ajey sir, you are on mute. Wait just 1 second. Yeah.
Okay, guys, can you please make sure that you are on mute? If you are not on mute, this is gonna be a little bit complicated for all of us. Okay, where was I? And we'll see. So, culture and code. When you talk about it, code is a lot of things which actually operate a product, right? And design is one of that code which actually operates entire product from inception to the experience. So I thought like we should talk about product, and the 2 people I have interacted not a lot. I interacted with Abhinit a lot, not Harish a lot. I have seen Harish on the sites and I appreciate his work. And they both come with a very different thought process, very different personality. If you don't know a few things about Abhinit and Harish, I would say two facts each. So Abhinit actually made first Make My Trip app, hand drawn, 100 pages. Book My Show app, hand drawn, 100 pages, pen and paper. And for Metallica app, he actually figured out how to play music on iPhone after 2 straight night outs. Harish, on the other hand, is creating a genre for music for himself and his band. And there are a lot of good things which happening over there. I will show you a little bit of glimpse of it, how it kind of looks. So I cannot screen share. Okay, anyway, so you should watch Harish's Twitter handle where he is actually making crowd go crazy with Agam. So thank you, Harish and Abhinit to join me over here today. Before we start, I want to know who you are. Tell us a little bit about your journey. Take any order. And also, this is mostly a conversation. I'm not going to ask you many questions. We'll see how the flow goes, and we talk about things. We should discuss what we like, and the timing is flexible. We go from 60 to 90 minutes and stay there. But let's talk about first who you are. What makes you Harish, and what makes you Abhinit?
Abhinit, you'll go first.
Sure. There's not much to it, Ajay. I'm a programmer turned designer. What makes me me? I think our previous company, Left Shift, I think the website Sudhanshu wrote it said it all. I like to make lovable apps. I like to make apps which evoke some positive reaction, which don't just get things done. That and launching those launch days are my favorite days. Just launching those is, I guess, makes me who I am. Just keep making shit that people like.
Super. Hi. So my name is Harish. I am a JavaScript programmer for the most. So spent a good part of my life writing code for the web and subsequently for mobile. So and my experience with design has largely been working with great designers, learning from them, being a good partner for them, trying to work and convert their vision via code to something that is real that people can experience. I have historically been in close company with great designers and have had great mentors and designers. It's a cohort of people I love hanging out with, learning from, and spending time with. So that's how I ended up in design. And my biggest strength in design even today is my ability to work with designers and understand what their aspirations are and try my level best to make them into a reality. Other than that, I'm a very subjective human being. I don't think anything in life is very objective. So I thrive and enjoy the subjectivity that I'm blessed with as a human being. So in that sense, I like to create beautiful things. And I'm a very beauty first person. If it is not beautiful, if it works, it's not good enough. So I think for me, being beautiful is my first point of reference to anything that I lay my eyes on or I touch my hands with. So that's largely what I am. And secondly, I am an artist. So I try to find art in everything. And specifically, I try to find a lot of art in design.
Yeah, Harish, you are not only artist, you are a composer and you are a musician and you are also a sound engineer, which is like crazy, right?
Elizabeth, yes, thank you so much. I think I'm not good at all of them collectively, but yeah, I do try to dabble a little bit.
Yeah, and there are a lot of good things which I heard both. And one of the things which I'm very proud of both of you is that you are behind one of the most recognizable logos behind the logos in this startup industry. Tell me the story of CRED logo. I want to know how did it come to happen? I heard like you had a crazy story. Go ahead with that, please.
I'll be very honest. So I think it took a long time for us to name the company, and I think we went through some multiple iterations of really defining how do we convert this idea of being a club for the top 10% of people from a credit score standpoint, and how to keep ourselves away from being straitjacketed into any particular line of business, something which I still hold very close to myself. So when people ask me, what is CRED? Is it a fintech? Is it a lifestyle commerce? Is it gaming? Is it NBFC? Is it money lending? I would say it is none of all this and all of all this. So I think the whole idea of CRED sort of came up when Kunal texted me, I think, on a Thursday evening and said, why don't we call this CRED? And anyway, we are trying to do something around credit cards and should. And so my instinctive reaction was like, if we get CRED as CRED, we should do it. But if you do one of those stupid spelling enhancements like CRED or CRD or something like that, then it will not be fun. So he said, we'll figure out that later, but you should just go and design CRED. So two instructions that I took that night was create something which innately shows trust, and something that was esoteric enough to infuse curiosity in people. Like, don't make it look like anything super recognizable, that people associate something to it. At the same time, something that keeps the intrigue in people. So there's a guy called Jibin Joseph in my team. We had just hired him. I hired him at a time when he did not even know what this company was. I just told him we'll build some cool stuff, come and hang out early stage, just 3 people. So I think he designed something that had following metaphors. One is it looked like a shield and also like a pocket. And it had disjointed lines, which actually looked like one of those fingerprint recognition things. It is a thing that a high-tech club would typically have access restrictions. So basically it was one of the animation he created literally was like when you place your finger, the lines sort of animate. And both of these put together largely also got tied into something like a shield, which again shows a sign of trust. So some of these values we wrote from what he created. But to be very honest, it was something that immediately caught a lot of people's intrigue. We just ran it by the 15, 16 people who were at CRED, and there was great resonance. And this looks like something that I would go and read about. What is this logo? What is this trying to do? What is this company? So I think it sort of ticked off that. And to be honest, Ajay, we just ran with it. We threw our weight behind it. We did not really overanalyze it as to what else could have been possible. Here's a guy who built 7 options. We liked one, and we said we're going to throw our weight behind it and just run, because I think in the grand scheme of things, we had more things to worry about than the logo. I think if we got the app right, the product right, and the business right, I think the logo would probably play out just fine. So that's how we did it. And it has sort of stuck. I think it has sort of served as well till today. So that's how that came into it.
Yeah, and actually the logos evolve, right? Like a lot of people change logos, and but what you said is absolutely right. Like it's a shield, it's a fingerprint, it's a exclusivity, it's a black, and it kind of embodies all those elements and esoteric as well. And I'll come back to that. Because that is a very good element, and we should talk about it. On the other hand, Abhinit, I have over here, has gone through a journey of designing a logo from an old logo to a new logo, and I was there when he did that. It was amazing. The reason it was amazing, I'll tell you that. And Girish, Harish, you actually talked to me when we were at Gojek, and like I remember talking to you at Hilton near poolside, and we were like talking all this stuff. And I don't know whether you remember it or not. And he's like, you asked me, Ajay, why motorcycle? And we had a Gojek logo which has a motorcycle with Wi-Fi. And a lot of people I was used to explain, and people used to say, do you guys sell Wi-Fi on motorcycle? Like, I said, no, we don't. We sell food, we sell this. And we could not embody that because it started with something which online services on motorcycle, but it got introduced completely differently in multiple ways. So when we became 16 products, Abhinit was tasked with coming up with the Gojek logo. Abhinit, I'm gonna show something. I think I can show something, and then you can talk about it, or should I show it later and you talk about it? Let's talk about it now. Why don't you go ahead and talk the journey of Gojek logo?
Sure. Yeah. So I think it was a very nervous period of time for my whole design team. I think Gojek started in 2010, and the old logo, I think one of the co-founders scribbled it on a napkin or something. That's the story I've heard. And somebody came up with the logo, and it reflected what Gojek did then and did it really well, which was, two-wheelers. We literally painted the streets of Jakarta green. You can't walk around without seeing that old Gojek logo here. And the heart of our operations and our product were these drivers, right? So it was sort of a tribute to them. But as far as logos go, it committed as many sins as a bad logo can. First of all, it tied you to a meaning, which means like if a company pivots or it evolves into something else, you're tied to that old meaning, and you keep getting these questions like you said you get. Another was it was very complicated, like lots of layers. It didn't work very well on the places where it needs to work. I think people complicate logos a lot. It just has to do a few jobs. It has to be unique enough to not be confused with another brand. It has to be simple enough that people can remember it. And it has to be, it has to have recall value. Like when you see it, it should work. And it should work in all the places that you need it to work, which in case of apps and websites is, from that 16 by 16 fav icon to a giant billboard. So we started, I think in the beginning, we hired a couple of agencies. They came, they talked to Gojek. They tried figuring out what does Gojek mean to different people. And I think everybody got lost because Gojek does so many things and means so many different things to so many people. So we tried some agencies for 5-6 months, and then we didn't get what we were, what we wanted. And I kept giving strong opinions every meeting. And I think Nadeem got tired one day and he was like, hey, why don't we do it in-house? And that was very scary because if you look at the internet, I think designers and people in general reserve the most amount of hate for redesigns, and specifically for logo redesigns, right? So that's how we started. We spent a lot of time, and we thought of it as an opportunity to not just redo the logo, but to have a brand language of ourselves. Until that point, we'd just been, you know this better than me, Ajay, like Gojek just hit a product market fit jackpot, right? Like you couldn't make the products fast enough, right? There was such latent need in the market. So we built things as fast as we could, but we didn't have much of a design language. So we took that as a chance. I talked to Nadeem and I told him, like, the output will not be a logo. The output would be a book, right? Like we'll have a book of our own. That'll be the Gojek brand book. And that's a Bible for who we are. How do we represent ourselves stylistically? And then, yeah, we spent a year designing things from driver jackets to how would it look on scooters, how do you do decal on cars, colors, typography, composition, tone of voice, photography. It was so much fun shooting photographs with people and trying to come up with a unique style. So we learned a lot and we launched it.
Yeah.
And yeah, people liked it. And there was absolutely zero hit, which was
this
was the
good.
best we could hope for.
Dude, do you have that book somewhere? Do you have that book in online domain or open domain? No, not.
I have it here.
No. Yeah, but do you have the book in some open source domain? You should totally post it.
There's no book, but you can go to gojek.design and you can see most of the content.
Yeah, I want to show people this. I really want to show people this, and hopefully this comes in, shows up nicely. So this is what they actually named it. I was like, what? You name
daily problems can look daunting.
Can you hear the sound?
Yep.
Okay.
See this? The shape of your traffic troubles, the size of your cooking woes, the length of your endless wait. But wait. Where there's a problem, there's Gojek, your life hack. You see, problems come in many shapes and sizes, but solutions come in one. Introducing Solve, the brand new Gojek logo, the universal Markov solutions. After all, your search is our command. We're the pin on your map. Our heroes get things done. You know where we're coming from. And we empower you to live life hassle-free. Because problems are here to stay, but with Gojek, there's always a way.
I liked it so much. Like somebody gave a logo a name, figured out what to use case, and trying to educate people. And you know what Abhinit was trying to do? He was trying to avoid the hate. You're like, I'm going to teach you this. So this brings me a thing that design also needs to be educated. What is design according to you guys? Harish, because I know you have very, very different view. What is design, Harish?
It's a lot of things for me. I think I generally take a human analogy to it. So what does living mean is an interesting question. Like, it can be as abstract as having the right blood pressure, having the right pulse, breathing well. You are clinically alive, but then you also don't call that being alive. Like, an alive person is not a person who is just has the right pulse and breathing. So for me, being alive is doing things that matter, making a difference, trying to seek out things that make you happy, encountering experiences in life that is sinusoidal in nature, moments of happiness, moments of anxiety, moment of sadness, moment of excitement, moment of accomplishment. I think till the point we die, we go through these multiple moments in our life and collectively put together, that's what we call as a life lived. See, for me, I try to take that analogy into the way I define design. In a lot of ways, I was told, or people continue to be told, that design is about taking a problem and solving it. For me, that's almost like saying living is about checking BP, sugar, pulse, and checking a person is alive. So design for me is an artistic pursuit. And design is something that innately turns something to a moment of joy, a moment of purpose, a moment of innate human reaction. So anything that kind of triggers a reaction in a human being, like, it could be a combination of everything that I mentioned. Design should generate that in humans. We are a uniquely blessed species which can experience a lot of what you said. Like, we are very sentinel in that sense. So for me, design is something that aids all of this, and not something which is like a fix for a leaky tap. Like, I mean, honestly, that's problem solving. Like, a tap is leaking, you put adhesive on it and the tap stops leaking. Have you designed anything? No, you haven't. You actually have sort of fixed stuff. For me, design is firmly a creation process. And whenever you create something, it innately becomes art. So design in that sense is firmly art. And the beauty of art is that it touches people. It touches people differently. Like, the same art doesn't work for everyone, and we all have subjectivity in taste, whatnot, but we all know what is art and what is not art. So for me, design is a way of touching humans in more ways that can be defined objectively. I'm a programmer. I come from an extremely objective world of writing logic and functions and code. But for me, design cannot be abstracted like that. So design is something which is far more immeasurable, far more subjective, far more emotionally touching for the person who encounters it. So for me, everything that I create has to pass that test. So for me, it is not an efficient way to solve the problem. Not at all. I don't. If that was the purpose of designing, I would have quit designing long time ago. See, that almost is like plumbing for me. Not that I have problem with plumbing. Plumbing is important, but when you're plumbing, you don't call that creating anything. Like, you're just fixing for a problem. It's like applying adhesive and putting cement back is not necessarily a creative pursuit. See, for me, design is firmly a creative pursuit. And Ajay, to be very honest, in my entire life that I've been a designer for like 10, 11 odd years, I have stuck to this goal that everything should be a creation exercise. So I have my Slack status is set to create, don't fix. And so I live by that notion. See, I mean, everything that I'm asked to do, I keep a creator's mindset. I don't keep a fixer's mindset. So if you're fixing, you're not designing. See, designing is innate. And you have to have an artsy state of mind to create things that last. If you are abstracting everything out into unit problems and solving this, it's very unemotional. It will not be remembered. And the last thing, Ajay, I have a very contrarian view. I have many contrarian views for that. Like, speaking about hate, I think I get 5.5 kilos of hate every day, which I'm packing and keeping. Matter. For me, how do I say it? For me, design is it's a pursuit that should be felt, should be pronounced. So I don't make my designs invisible. Never done that. For me, design is very visible. It should be felt. It should be pronounced. It should be seen. It should be felt. Like, I have never designed to make anything invisible, nor will I do that in my life.
Yeah, I'll tell you something, Harish. What you said is absolutely right. I'll tell you, one of the things I asked people, a lot of people, and Abhinit knows this is strong view. I always ask, are you a programmer or are you a product manager? Whoever you are, you should be the person who should be good at your craft. And this is people call me dogmatic a lot of times. I get called dogmatic a lot of times, and it's okay. I always see So I write code. And I always see writing code as a craft, as an art. And the reason I say that is that I have never seen, and what you said last sentence, design should be felt. I would put it this: a craft should be felt. If you're looking at something, I will call it craft should be felt. I have never seen a musician giving up music, creating music ever in their life. I have never seen a painter giving up painting ever in their life. The way you experience them and tell them they are good or bad is by experiencing their craft, whether they are creating music, whether they are creating painting, whether they are cooking food, if they're chef. Same with designers and same with programmers as well. And that is what I really love about you. And it's like the 5.5 kg of cake. I can tell you, I have gone through much more than that. I have been called many things, and it's perfectly fine. Good thing, I'll tell you good thing about me and you and Abhinit. You guys started your career as a programmers and became designers. I started my career as a designer and became programmer. So I want to talk about this to Abhinit as well, because I know Abhinit has a very different view, but both of you have reached a place where you end up creating something and impacting users. So let's hear from Abhinit. Abhinit, what is design for you, man? What is design for you?
Yeah, I think I'll start with what it isn't, to me at least. And the first thing is, I don't think design is art. There's art in everything. There's art in everything. When I've seen some piece of code which looks like poems to me, right? So there's art in everything, but I don't think design.
Yes,
yeah, but I don't think design is art. Even though it makes people feel things, and that's very important. I don't think design and engineering are the same thing. Engineering takes science and uses science to make something which gives utility to people. I don't think design is just that. That's probably where Harish is coming from in terms of fixing problem. I don't think it's part of design, according to me, fixing problems, but that's not where you stop. It has to make you feel something. So for me, design lies between art and engineering, right? A designer is somebody who on one hand understands the constraints, understands how the machine works, understands how to get the most out of it. But design is always should be driven by intention and purpose, and that intention and purpose should be to make the end user feel the intention behind why you built a product. So if it's a fintech company and you say that we are here to unlock human potential, if you're a footwear company and you're here to empower athlete, I think design is that difference, right? If you're bad at design, you might still solve the problem, but the people will not feel that intention, that purpose, that energy behind it. And if you're good at design, then people will feel that purpose behind the company at every interaction that they have with you, be it seeing a driver on the street, be it calling your CCU, be it seeing your ads, anything at all. Anytime they interact with the brand, see a brand, if it's or a product, if it's well designed, they'll feel why is it that you folks are building this thing. So not art, not engineering, something in the middle.
Yeah, how do you define that something in the middle? So I'll tell you one more thing, and this is very good. Actually, we came to a very good point. I really love this point. Look, the thing is, there's always a balance of left side of brain and right side of brain, right? And that balance goes somewhere 30% to 70%, or 70% to 30%. Depends where you are. What you are saying, I'm not taking an extreme view. What you are saying, it is like maybe it is 30% art and 70% engineering, or maybe it's 60% art and 40% engineering. I don't know what that mix is. I also can argue that mix is a very different mix in different context. Somewhere it goes more towards art than just engineering, and somewhere more goes towards engineering than it goes towards art. So given that, how would you define what approach to take? What is your approach? What approach to take to actually go create something? At the end of the day, you are putting a concept, abstract, to a shape, in terms of thought process, in terms of appeal, in terms of appearance, in terms of visuals, in terms of interaction, whatever way you call it, right? What does that process looks like for you, Abhinit?
Process of I'm sorry, I got a little lost. The process of how I go about designing and making things.
Yes. How would you go? What does your work day look like? How do you do what you do?
How do I do what I do? Well, it always starts with why, right? Like people will come to you with some sort of a problem, right? And it always starts with a why, like, why are we doing this? And the second question that pops in my head is like, what do we want the customer to feel at the end of it? Right? Like, does it evoke a positive emotion or not? Right? And what is that point in the journey that will make people go, yeah, yes, it's not just that I got this thing done, but gives them a little bit of dopamine at the end of it. So figuring that out is always the start of the process. I think this is a common problem with designers, or at least I have faced, which is in a lot of places people will come up to you when they've already kind of sorted the problem out. They've already identified all the constraints. They already have a long list of what cannot be done, right? And then they want you to solve this problem in that narrow way. So my first step is always explore the problem space, right? Just keep asking them why until they give you the answers, or they tell you I don't know, or they cry, right? So until I know what the end looks like, imagine it this way: like if you ask me to design an app, I will start designing the landing page first, right? I'll start imagining the advertisement first. I'll start imagining how I will sell this, or how I will convince my friends to download this thing and use it first, right? Until I understand that, until I can imagine that moment of launch and being proud about it, I wouldn't start doing anything. After that, I think it's a race to get to prototypes, something tangible, something real, something I can see and feel as fast as possible, right? And once you get to that place, then like Harish said, like then you start showing it to people, right? If you're lucky, these will be people who have knowledge of craft and who have some taste, right? And that's where design criticism starts. And then you refine it, then you launch it, right? And launch days are the best days, because after that there's hell. So then the cycle starts again.
I must give you one thing to both of you. I
Sure.
think you are the one of the most humble people I have met. I don't know, is a design criticism which makes you humble? Like you have heard so much about criticism about your things which you create, because I know designers go through a lot of criticism, and that's where the iterations go. And that was the thought process I had, where I titled this talk as Iterating Imperfections, right? So Harish, coming to you, what do you do and how do you do it? How do you do what you do? That is the question. How do you do what you do?
A lot of resonance to what Abhinit said. I think there's a lot of in this particular one, there's a lot of similarity in the way I would look at design as a process. For instance, I am also. He said it pretty eloquently. Actually, he said landing page first. I am also a bit of that person. So for me, I have one principle that I have learned from Adobe. This is from one of my bosses whom I worked with as an engineer then. So it's a line that has stuck with me from the age of 26 or something. It's a long time now. It is that when you're creating a product, everything is necessary. It is basis the constraints that you eliminate what is not necessary. But in principle, I look at a problem by saying everything is necessary. When I say everything is necessary, my MVP includes everything that Abhinit said. The microsite, the animations that I will run, the transitions that I will design, the micro copy animation that I will do, the color transition I will do, the error messages, the way they get presented, everything is necessary. Of course, I'll not be able to see in product development. That's the thing, right? You'll have to, of course, operate on the constraints of what you're building. But I despise designing on constraints. You design without constraints, apply constraints to regulate it. When you have design without constraints, you have indeed produced something really, really good. But then, of course, the practicality of it then kicks in, and then you appropriately adjust it. But in many a time when I meet product managers, they have what's called as an MVP mindset. I significantly dislike the MVP mindset, which is identify the 5 basic things that you need to build. But there's no such thing. When you're actually building a car, you build a car as if this is the best car that you can ever build. But then you'll have monetary, time, technological, regulatory constraints, which will reduce your scope to build a car. But don't think the bare minimum is the steering wheel, a clutch pedal, a brake, a transmission, and a seat. You don't build like that. This is a problem with MVP thinking. So, which is why, much like Abhinit said, I am visual design first. I don't understand wireframes. I don't intend to understand wireframes ever in my life. I don't understand anything lo-fi. If you're actually showing me, you have to show me like how the customer will experience it. So one of the interesting tidbits I had was I hired the second designer I hired at CRED was a motion designer. And the guidance that Kunal and I gave him was that show CRED like a movie trailer, not like a synopsis. People don't read synopsis. People watch movie trailers. Customers like to see what they will actually get to see. So, which is why, for me, even this every single iteration that I create has to look like the finished product. Of course, it comes with a cost. It has got a lot of sunk cost fallacy will come because I worked so hard on this iteration. Now you're asking me to change it. I put in so much effort into polishing this, but now you're asking me to change it. But all those are part of building something again and again, which looks like your final app. So for me, the craft has to shine in every iteration. And every iteration that I review, and I hate the word review, that I'm collaboratively part of, has to look like the final app that the customer will touch. There is no such thing like approximately let me figure something out and we'll extrapolate. Humans don't operate on extrapolation. Humans operate on what they see. You can't actually show a picture of a car and say, please buy this car. The guy will actually come and take a test drive. So every single iteration, so there is nothing called I'm going to sell you an MVP of a Mercedes-Benz. You sell a Mercedes-Benz. There's no such thing called MVP of Mercedes-Benz. For me, consumer apps are like physical products. And the last, Ajay, I think I in grab software world for a very long time. 10 years is a long time to be in a company that made software. So box software has very few points of return. Once you've pressed a CD and put it into a box and given it, if there is a bug, you have to ship another box. So getting it right and being right a lot is a trait that I have sort of internalized to myself. So I don't understand fix fast, fail fast at all. So I don't believe in it. I would rather spend extra hours to get it right. And I always try to hang out and hire people that are right a lot. Intrinsically are right either by their intuition or by their experience or by their data centricity. They have to be right. If you're not right, you can't just ship something and check if the customers are getting it. I mean, I despise building in that model. So that is my overall take on design. Like build every iteration as if you would ship it. You may not ship it, but every single iteration should be so final and complete and polished. So at CRED, we have a thing. If you're 2 pixels off, we will not ship it, even if it's an FAQ page. Do we still ship badly designed screens? Yes. That's the unfortunate reality of life because things slip through the cracks. And do we have badly designed screens in the app? Yes. But the principle remains that if you had your way, you shouldn't have shipped it. So which kind of helps you put it back in perspective and try to fix that often. So longish answer, but that's largely my process.
No, the process is good. And that's your process. And it's working fine. How would you translate this process over iterations? Like I understand that you want to have a very nicely polished product every iteration, but then there has to be a way or place, or maybe not. But is there a let me not assume. Let me say, is there a place for experimentation? Because experimentation may mean that you have 2 versions of same thing. Or it may mean you have 2 options for different users, or it may mean many things. So how do you balance between chasing the perfection for the iteration and chasing the perfecting it over iterations, if I have to put my words like that?
I think fantastic articulation, Ajay. Thanks for asking this. I think it's probably one of the best possible ways this question has been asked to me. So I just want to clarify. I think I'm somebody that believes in creating multiple variants. I think that no one solution is ever right unless you have created alternate solutions for the users, because there is constraints with respect to what you can qualitatively learn from them. There's even constraints with respect to what you can quantitatively learn from both kinds of data. So of course you have to create variants and options. So the only point I try to make is that if you create 3 versions, make them like how you would ship them. Like, I mean, there should be at least, are you able to hear me? Because Ajay, I think your screen is frozen.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's just the attitude, Ajay, if you may, to to drive and create every iteration. Like if situations demand, you can ship that iteration and it will still be a great product. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't want to be in a situation where I have created an iteration. It will require further 3 weeks to make it ready to be shipped. So I would rather absorb time in my iteration and say, okay, this is going to work. We're going to try this out. Then it has to be at a place where we can take it and ship it. So that is the point that I'm trying to make. So, but otherwise, everything that you said is still true. We should be able to create variance. We should be able to quickly show it and measure it. So no dissonance in any of that. And I think the way I have been able to do this, at least in my teams, is to hire a certain kind of designers to do this. We'll come to that in a little bit, but that's how I'm figuring this out.
Nice. Okay, awesome. And I'll come to Abhinit now because I want to hear his views. Abhinit, one of the things which I want to understand, that a lot of time what happens is the developers almost fall behind many times, and we have been part of that battle all the time, right?
Yep.
But still, we need to figure out how do we go about designing. What is your approach? Harish approach now, and your approach is a little bit different. I'll ask the same question in a friend for a year. I have seen you designing the entire book. I have seen you're like writing the constitution, and then somebody has to go and follow the constitution and do something, build buildings and roads and or budget. You actually lay out, not constitution, you lay down the budget, and then somebody has to follow that budget.
Yep.
Because of time, a lot of design will not get used, and I think you're okay with that sunk cost policy. I should not assume. But again, the same question for you is that how do you go for perfection for the iteration, and how do you chase perfection?
Yep. So one thing that I'll carry over from what Harish said was that, I too would design things in a way that what I'm shipping out, the variant, is as close to what it will eventually be, right? The prod version will be as possible. But I think that's where, and this is mostly centered on Gojek, right? In Gojek, with this scale, things were a little different. We have to first think about why is it that designers have problems with being very iterative, right? Design itself is very iterative. We design for human beings. We don't, design for computers. Humans are notoriously unpredictable. And therefore, you have to make sure, you can never be sure. Designers probably are the most unsure people I've ever met in a typical PDG function. Hey, can you hear me? Your screen is stuck.
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are audible. You're audible.
Yeah. So we are never sure.
I'm usually very still. I'll keep doing this now.
We're the most unsure people. We would put a button and there's only 640 and 480 pixels, and we would debate for 3 weeks whether the button goes at the bottom or it goes at the top or it goes on the left. So you have to do variations. And the problem with, you said developers, the problem with matching the product development cycle, I think most companies are on a 2-week cycle, is that design doesn't fit neatly within the agile sprint thing always, right? Especially if you're trying to design something amazing, if you're trying to solve a problem or create something which nobody's ever done before, it takes time. So how I do it, Ajay, and you hinted at that, was at the very beginning of coming at Gojek, we started laying foundations of a system, right? So we identified where is it that we need to have most creative freedom. People said, okay, we need the ability to change copy in different screens. Copy is 80% of design anyways. So we were like, okay, how do we make sure that we change the copy without having to go to a product group and asking them for prioritization? So we built a UX engineering team, and the UX engineering team designed a system where the copies would be in one place and translations for 5 countries. And then eventually we got the control to do experimentation on the run. Similar thing for, say, illustration style. We want to change that. We are not sure what illustration style would be unique enough and would speak to different, Vietnamese people in Vietnam and Singaporean people in Singapore. So we knew we need to change this, and we don't want to go and ask for development resources every time. So we built a tool called Coffer, We spent 6 months building it, and all our illustrations live there, right? So they're fetched from there, and we have
Wait a
complete
minute.
control on. Yep.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
Ajey Gore's perfection person is coming out.
Yes.
No more developer resources, developer people. Can we please not
Sorry.
call them resources?
They're programming humans, right? So basically,
Human
like
programmers.
basically it's in a tech company, development bandwidth is the most precious resource. I knew that. So you can either worry about increasing the return, right? And that means avoiding risks, and that drives I have to be perfect when I launch, or you can focus on reducing the investment, right? So I think I have always focused on reducing the investment, removing the need to ask people to, let me experiment. So we've designed systems which let us change a lot of parts of our product without requiring a lot of development. That's how I get around the how do you iterate fast problem, right? If it makes sense, Ajey.
Look, I'll tell you one thing. There are 2 ways or 4 ways to reach your destination, and whatever way you take, as long as it doesn't cause discomfort to others, takes you to destination. That's the right way. It doesn't mean that other people have the wrong way.
Yep.
And I learned myself this in a very hard way. Like a lot of time, for a lot larger part of my time of my career, I always thought my way is the right way. But no, there can be multiple right ways. And a lot of time people say, he's right. But if he's right, that means that doesn't mean that she's wrong. Or if she's right, that doesn't mean that he's right. Like those things, we need to get over it, right? And if we don't get over it, we kind of, people who don't get over it start calling you dogmatic, and that's okay. That's I love that 5.5 kgs of hate from Harish. I can't forget that dialogue ever in my life, ever. So one of the things which I know about Abhinit, and I want to put that to you. Abhinit runs a Twitter handle with pseudonym. He doesn't tell what he runs, and he doesn't talk about it, but he just does something over there. Abhinit, if you don't have to tell us the handle, else it will defeat the entire purpose. But tell us what you talk. Tell us what you talk over there. What do you do? Who are your sources?
Sources a design community in general. Like I think, I generally rant about things. I don't know what specific dirt you're looking for, Ajey. But
I'm not looking for any dirt. Tell me something which is like really resonated with you, and you didn't want to say it publicly, and then when you tweeted about it, it went crazy. One of those things. You don't have to give me exact keywords, so I don't want anybody to identify you.
Yeah, the one is this rant, like that design is all about. There's a dichotomy in the design community, right? On one hand, there are people who are all about design is just making things pretty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other extreme, there are a lot of people who are, who pay no, they devote zero mind share to making sure that design doesn't lose all of its art, and they're only about we'll do the minimum possible that we can, and we'll call ourselves problem solvers. And these people on Dribble and these artist types are ruining design, right? So I think one of the things, the rants I went on there, which got some traction, was how, as you said, like you said, there are multiple paths to truth. I'm saying that the middle path is generally the West, right?
Okay.
It is both the things, right? Like we need to solve a problem. We need to be pretty as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. That's my pet peeve.
Okay.
And then there are other things also, that there's IC versus manager. Like young designers, they get so tied up. Should I become a manager or not? And I was ranting about, you need to step back. This is not a one-time decision. Careers are 25, 30 years long. And you will make this transition from IC manager many times in your career. So just, lay back, get a beverage and chill.
Yeah. I have very strong view. on
Yeah.
this. My view is that nobody should become manager, but
Yeah.
we should talk about it sometime else. Harish,
I'm very,
I have.
I'm
Go
very
ahead.
tempted
Go ahead.
one thing to what Abhinit said. Like, I don't know what this handle is. I'm just going to do my forensic right now to find out which one it is. But then one thing which I want to mention is, interestingly, he did make a point. Like, of course, here's my observation. I don't think, and this will be controversial, but I think it's okay. It's a good forum to speak about it. Through my career, I have seen very few visual designers or designers who are from the creative side of design suggest that solving a problem is a bad idea. I have yet to meet a person who is actually working on visual design side who actually says, I am only here to make things pretty. Like, there might be an odd extension of somebody with such an extremist view, but sadly, the other side is monstrously high, where, like, making things look pretty is unrequired, is a basically a vulgar majority in design community. I haven't seen the creative artistic types actually saying problem solving is not required. There is only an issue by saying if you are just solving a problem with no taste. I am of the camp that then call yourself a problem solver. I mean, it's a bit of a controversial line, but what the hell? Designing, if you want to say, it's almost like saying you're a guitarist or an air guitarist. Both of them look as if you are playing the guitar. Say, if you can't think in colors, pixels, typography, margins, padding, kerning, ligatures, you are not a full designer. Like, you can say whatever. You can say UX researchers are also designers. Qualitative researchers are also designers. People who work on spreadsheets are also designers. No. You have to work on a design tool to be a designer. And you can hate me for this, but if you can't operate on a design tool, I don't acknowledge those people to be designers. You can call us whatever. Like, for example, a music critic is not a musician. I sing, hence I'm a musician. You might know a lot about music. You can speak a lot about music. You can even criticize my music, but don't appropriate yourself as a musician. So my point is very simple. So if you're actually called, it's almost like, Ajey, can you speak about programming and call yourself a programmer? Like, you have to declare that variable, write that function, and run that recursion. That's when you become a programmer. So you can't do a clean layout. You don't understand basic structures of typography. You don't understand simple theories of color. How can you even appropriate yourself as a designer? So I come with a very extremist view. If you can't do visual design, you are a less of a designer. And in my head, I have seen more visual designers get really good at UX because they work harder. They work harder to learn the other facets, but the opposite side puts no effort and generally has a very self-fulfilling, demeaning view towards visual designers, which is what I fight on Twitter every day. I am not a visual designer, can't save my life in any of these, but I also don't call myself a designer. I call myself a programmer. So that's a point that I wanted to make. I mean, if you are appropriating yourself as a designer and can't do visuals, I don't know what you are.
Yeah. That's like I told you, like three of us over here have three different views, and those are amazing views. I'll tell you this, guys, like, because I have this very good observation about CRED. Everybody over there is kind of artist in something different as well. Like, I know that Zibin also plays something. Swami is vocalist or guitar, like keyboard. Harish sings, and there are a lot of people like that who do so many different things. So I think there are different kind of people who produce different nice things, and there's nothing about it. But I want to take a deliberate detour and talk about something else. I know that. So, Abhinit, do you know the world is the 6 degrees of separation theory?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you know that me and you are actually are 1 degree away from A.R. Rahman?
1 degree. That's definitely you. I don't know.
No. So Harish, why don't you talk to us about your and A.R. Rahman, your and A.R. Rahman experience, man? That makes us so proud. Harish?
I think he's finding his internet connection.
No, he's on mute. Harish, you're on mute, by the way. Oh, somebody has to unmute him. Hold on.
Yeah, I couldn't unmute. My video is also, I think my video is also stuck. Somebody has to turn on my video.
Okay,
Yeah.
we will start. Can somebody turn on his video, please?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to see that. I don't see that in the option. Let's see.
Oh, he switched off the video and he just went off of it. Okay.
I think I'll talk. The video can come in. So first off, just to the first bit. I think Ajay, yes, we at CRED have fortunately have artists or like people with artistic bent of mind. It's something which Kunal firmly believes in. And something which I have also sort of learned through. I never thought about it this way until I spoke to him. One of the things that I have learned is that one of the reasons why artists strive to do what they do is that they are innately encouraged by applause. Like, an artist might play music for money, but he might also play music for 1,000 people who are coming in only to listen to him or her. So I think being recognized, being at the center of attention, being applauded for some good work that he or she is doing is a big motivator for any artist. It could be a painter, musician, guitarist, stand-up comic, theater artist. It's not just music. So one of the things that we understood is that if you have that kind of a personality, you're unlikely to do sloppy work, because at some instance you're putting your weight behind your craft, you're putting your weight behind, like, if anybody could actually look at how performant your code is, and people find out that you have written your code sloppily, somebody who's an artist, he will not put his weight behind that creation because it was too insulting for him to be proven that it's a hacky piece of code that he wrote. Same thing with the designer. Like, how much ever successful the product became, but people can easily find out that you have been sloppy in your creation. It will be hard for a person with that sort of a mind to accept that the world found out your work is sloppy, but due to other reasons, your product worked, or your feature worked, or you became very successful. It's almost like a low talented person became commercially successful. But if you called him by the side and asked him, do you really believe you deserve this? A true artist would say that, no, I just got lucky. You would see a lot of artists say that, no, I don't think there are people better than me. I became famous only because I got lucky. I had the privilege, or I had the luck of time or whatnot. So I think that's one thing which I learned. So, which is why I think people with creative bent, people with a performing art bent typically do less sloppy work. It's something which I empirically learned. I'm not suggesting people who are not artists do sloppy work. So the converse is not true. The converse is not true at all. I think people who are not artists also do incredible quality of work. So, but the corollary is people who are artists are less likely to do sloppy work. And coming to my own trust with being able to work with A.R. Rahman, my band did a performance which got identified by him, and we got mentored by Rahman. We got a chance to record at his studio. I and Answami, we spent a whole bunch of time in the studio doing a whole bunch of work. So one of the things that I learned working in the music industry is that's an industry that can't A/B test. So Mr. Rahman can't make a song, create a scratch version of it and give it to 100 people and ask, do you think the song will work? Do you like this tune? Do you think this will be commercially successful? You have to create something and believe that you have created. And that is why Mr. Rahman is so successful. If he has been successful for 25 years, he's a classic example of knowing what his customers want. His customers are you and I, Ajay, you and I and Abhinit, Ajay. We have listened to his music and felt so good about his creations. One thing I learned is actually knowing your customer without actually having to run research is a superpower. Like, having a sense of who your audience is without actually having to run qualitative studies is almost like bionic, like superpower. If you can do anything to achieve that, where you intrinsically know what your customer is. And also, see, Rahman is another classic example. I'm so glad you asked this question. Rahman's music is often told that the first time listening, you will feel as if what the hell just happened. This is meaningless. Second listen, it's like, oh, there's something in it. Third listen, there's like, oh, this is really cool. Fifth listen, you're hooked and you're an evangelist. So he is a classic example of breaking a habit, something that I very constantly believe in. Humans thrive only if you challenge them, because our brains are wired to learn and do better moving forward. But in design, the antithesis typically is that if there is habit, don't break it. I typically get told this, like, if there is habit, don't break it. If there was habit and people don't break it, you'll make no progress. Honestly speaking, there is no one time to understand what is a good time to break a habit. If breaking the habit will result in better outcomes, now is a very good time to break the habit. So this is a constant advice I get, like, and think that we are told, like, an often misunderstood and misrepresented word in design is muscle memory. People use it in good knowledge or without good knowledge. Oh, there is muscle memory. You broke muscle memory. So muscle memory is like moving from a German car to an American car. Your indicators switch. That doesn't mean you are putting the wiper every day. You will learn. Your wiper and indicator have switched. Once you have learned, it doesn't matter. UI is no different. You don't have to stick to something that you created 15 years ago just because people got used to it. Point is, people getting used to it is the cheapest to break, because humans are very intellectually powerful beings. Like, you just have BMW, now your indicator is on the left, wiper is on the right. You'll make mistakes and give feedback, wiper is on. The person will learn. And that learning is completely worth it. Otherwise, German manufacturers will have to now go back and create cars like the American manufacturers. It doesn't work like that. Same thing with design. So I think that's the one thing which I learned about A.R. Rahman's music also. It was not a music that we had heard. When Roja came, nobody knew this music existed. Nobody knew a computer could produce music. And heck, we are here. So I think it's a good corollary for design also. If something can change your world for the better, if it causes some friction, if it causes some amount of frustration in you that, oh, I have to learn this again, it's okay. If it's a good thing, people will learn. And, Ajay, I'm only worried when people leave you because you changed something. People did not leave you, they found out, and then they came and complained to you, you're fine. It's almost like my daughter saying, I always used to keep my bottle over here. Today, you've kept it in the kitchen. But did you find it? Yes, I found it. What are you anxious about? It's just that my behavior changed. That's okay. That behavior will get internalized pretty quickly, and then we are good. It's also a partial answer to a question that's on chat. So, Ajay, so something which asked me, there are different versions of CRED, and why are you not pivoting? This is exactly why I'm not pivoting, because I don't know yet. So right now, to get to that right pivot, we have to change, and not change help me. So if change is for the good and people internalize the change, which they are, then the moments of anxiety is okay. The moment of irritation is okay. Just part and parcel of it.
Very interesting, actually. I'm super interested about this. This is one of those amazing things you said. I actually took note of a bunch of things. It's very, very interesting that once you release a song, you can't get a feedback on the song. I think that is the mindset, is a really good mindset. I kind of have that mindset as well for when I write software, because once you can always roll back, but it's a pain. To give your best to do things, and when you release, you should be proud of. Don't take shortcuts. I always say, any shortcuts you take today in software engineering will cost you 100x or 1000x in the future. And it doesn't work. Yeah.
Not an entitlement, right, Ajay? Don't abuse the privilege, basically. Just because you can roll back, you don't write sloppy code.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally understand for that. So given that, and that is fantastic answer, and there's nothing else I can actually ask you around this. But I have two different personalities over here, and it's such a yin and yang over here. I'm loving it. I want to ask my last question, and then we'll see if we can get one or two questions from the audience. If you have to go back 10 years back in your career, both of you, and you tell yourself, because I never like to answer this question myself, so I'm going to phrase it differently. If you go back 10 years back when you're starting the career, and today's self gonna tell that 10 years old self, 10-year back self, this is what you should do when you're trying to pursue a career in design, what would you tell them?
Abhinit should go first.
I don't be so sure, right?
Don't be so
when I was in servicing, right, clients would come, you would design for them, you would launch an app for them, there'd be applause at launch when you did a decent job. and then your job is done, right? And I used to have much stronger opinions on, I used to believe I have some instinct, some gut feelings about this will work for people, or like Harish said, right? Like learnability is a thing. I've taken bets where I've changed something, I've put the bottle in the kitchen, and I've put the bet that people will figure it out. How hard can it be? And then I had to design for 10 million people, 20 million people, right? And that's when I realized that even if you're 90% right, the rest of the 10%, and seeing it in data day after that, day after day, that they do not pick that up, what do you do then? So yeah, I've learned to not be so sure. And plus, some of the things I thought were fundamental truths. This is how human mind works. I've realized that you can't assume anything, especially with humans. There's certain things, which can always change. So I would just tell myself, don't be so sure, right? That's about it. That's all I can think of. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I mean, if I have to rewind 10 years back, one thing which I will surely tell the 10-year younger self is, this is something which I tell my design team right now. They are my friends. A good design team is only as good as a good front-end engineering team. Otherwise you are just dead pixels. You will at best make it into Behance or a dribble shot, or at best to Pinterest. But your creation comes to life when engineers take your creation and bring it to life, especially front end. Of course, back-end engineers also, but purely from a design standpoint. So one thing which I will definitely tell is to kind of build more empathy towards what does it take to convert your design vision to working code. Like a lot of designers sometimes tell, oh, this is engineering, I don't understand this. And generally they have a very antagonistic feeling towards engineers by saying the guys are sloppy, the guys are lazy, they're always putting constraints back, they're always saying that this is not possible. I would largely tell the designer in me to be more empathetic to people who are actually bringing your vision to life, because good engineering is hard. Creating your After Effects prototype into working code and make it work without the phone eating up is a non-trivial pursuit. So I would definitely encourage designers to learn and understand the meaning of good engineering that helps bring design to life. I think it's very, very critical. I mean, I have learned it through my life. And the second point is, when you create something which people love without any purpose, that's when you have really created great meaning. For example, every high gross margin product exists because they have a purpose way beyond the actual purpose of it. You don't buy a Gucci bag because you didn't have a bag. You don't buy a Rolls Royce because you didn't have a car. For when closer home, you don't buy an iPhone because it has got features that no other phone has. So for me, creating for a particular utility is the worst way to create. You should always create products that people love way beyond the purpose why it exists, which is why I am generally inspired by monuments. I am inspired by luxury goods. I am inspired by temples, malls that really work. If somebody asked you the purpose of going to Phoenix Market City in Bangalore, you'll get 20,000 different answers. There's not a single binding purpose, and super apps are a bit like that. So as long as you can get people to come to your creation without a single purpose, I think you have created a great product. So this I will tell back to my 10-year younger self, because I think I was at that point too obsessed to take and over obsess on the problem I was solving and the solution I was putting. I think great creations work when humans think from their heart and not from their head. Rational brain, in my opinion, is the lowest cross margin space to operate. For me, move the thinking to the center of the chest or the left center of the chest, and you have people staying. And emotional decisions are innately higher gross margin. So I would
course.
encourage my younger self to don't obsess too much over objective, rational solutions. They're not important. I think affect the human in ways beyond the problem that he's encountering. Be very warm and fuzzy. Work heavily on FOMO. FOMO is the biggest ever life hack that I've learned in my life. Most people do things because there is FOMO, not because there is need. So if I were to summarize, don't solve for need. It's a very wafer thin margin solution if you're solving for need, because somebody else can easily outdo you by solving for that need in an efficient way, and they will. But if you are solving for emotion, if you are solving for somebody innately, say, I like my daughter, it's not going to change. That's how emotional relationships work, and it's going to stay that way. And people should love your product in that way, not because it was the fastest or cleanest or most efficient, or say, all those things are very, very non-fungible. It will, it'll just go away when somebody else comes and out innovates. But if you have created evangelists for your creation from the heart, that's gross margins for a lifetime. So I would my younger self a lot.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. I actually, I have a very similar advice in the recruitment space when I tell people saying, if somebody comes for hiring or comes to give you an interview, whatever happens, whether you get them or not, they should go out as if they are your ambassador.
Yeah.
They should go out saying, hey, I had an amazing day at Gojek or CRED or whatever. They treated me very well. I don't know whether I'll get selected or not, but hey, man, I just enjoyed the day. And that is what thing, what you said about warm, being fuzzy. People do things because there is FOMO. Figure out objectively rational solution, different way at a connect level. Those are the things which actually really design means. And thank you for spending time with us today. I don't think so we have any different question. I do not want to take the question which is there. That is about GTM. And I don't know whether you guys want to answer the question. But if there is any design question, I will take that. But nothing else. Harish and Abhinit, I normally don't do this, but do you want to ask me anything?
I have a question. As somebody who has probably seen what you've been able to, and not just me, I think a lot of people that from the realm that I represent would benefit from this question that I'm asking. I think one of the things that we speak about, the product that you built, the entire suite of Gojek, and partially as a customer as well as a designer, one of the things that we look at with, and this goes to both you and Abhinit, with enormous amount of respect, is that it put the brand and its customer firmly at the center and never really swayed one way or the other. So the way I have seen the product, because I also am friends with Swami and he was at Gojek and when he was building it, so I've had these conversations. So one advice that Ajay, as an engineering leader, as like a very senior technologist, we can speak about design to no end, but I think the glue that binds great design to the customer is having an engineering culture, having an engineering attitude, which has to be very leader driven, in my opinion, to be able to place both the brand and the customer at the center of the whole universe and create great systems that stand and thrive, like how Gojek has thrived for like now 12 years, almost more than a decade. So this is something which I think both designers and engineers will stand to benefit greatly. At least I will greatly stand to benefit learning from this one.
So one of the things which we kind of don't do, it's applicable to almost everybody. We kind of when we are becoming bigger and bigger, how do you communicate? What ethics do you follow? What things you like in life? What things you don't like in life? How do you operate? When you must be saying we at CRED do this, or we at Gojek do this, or we at Sequoia now do this. What is it we define for? What is it we is? That we is a cumulative expression of all of us, right? That's what the we is. So what I did, one of the things which I did is like started looking at that we and started kind of documenting that we. So for example, we will never do anything wrong by driver came from Nadeem. But then there are a bunch of things which came from us and Sudhanshu and Abhinit. We kind of did that and put one post together saying, what does it take to shine at Gojek Engineering 101? And that was just the behavior of Gojek Engineering. But one of the things which we did with all the product managers, designers, and everybody else, we said that we'll never do wrong with our driver partners and we'll never do wrong with our consumers. Whatever we do, the attitude of app has to change from this is what we do for you to what can we do for you. And that attitude change was very different. Like once you have this is what we can do for you is like show a bunch of things and let them do what choose whatever it is. But once you change to servant attitude saying, what can we do for you? Tell us, do you want us to book a cab for you? Do you want us to order food for you? And that changed the entire interface. I remember Abhinit and Sudhanshu went around creating Shuffle, which was card-based interface, which actually showed the intent of user at that point of time to do appropriate things, and we're trying to guess the user intent. So that put the entire consumer in the center. And that servant attitude or that service attitude or handling with the gloves kind of attitude is something every product, if it can do, then things will change dramatically for consumers. So Abhinit, do you want to add something to it?
I get my one question. I think this is the first time you've done this. So my question is this, Ajay, like there are a lot of designers.
But do you want to add whatever I said?
No, yeah. Like I can just plus million to what you and Harish said. Like what engineering, like designers do nothing. I got into design because I was a front-end developer, and the designs I was getting were websites made small. I thought front-end engineers, designers don't understand what iOS is about. They don't understand what Android is about, what mobile apps are about. That's why I started designing, because I wanted to make something, right? So yeah, like and at Gojek, I think actually I think we'd be taking too much credit, man. Like when we came to this company, it was already all about customer. I think that's the one thing I love about Gojek the most, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot about interface and design, product design, etc. But the real credit, man, if anybody comes to Jakarta, right? And this is not a diss on any Indian or food delivery services or anything else, but look at our drivers. Look at their attitude. Look at how they walk. Look at how they dress, right? Just look at their attitude and you'll feel a world of a difference. So sit in their car and see how they greet you, right? That is no credit to us, Ajay, to be honest, right?
Yeah, no, I was not talking about.
That's a response. Yeah, that's a response to. This company really says what like they've always said drivers are the center of it, our universe, customer center of the universe, and we've done things to kind of make them believe that. Yeah,
we don't think for them. I can tell you one experience which I had when we actually implemented cashless withdrawal for drivers, so that they could go to a ATM and just withdraw money without putting any credit card or debit card. Earlier, driver has to come to Gojek office every day and then give them boatloads of cash. The day we did that, we had so many emotional encounters with drivers where they actually in tears saying, "You made my life amazing. That I don't have to go to 20 kilometers to withdraw the cash. I can go to any ATM and just withdraw the cash." So I totally get you, and that's why I said that customers and drivers are in the center, and that attitude is like really company wide.
Yeah. And one thing for CRED, Harish, right? Thank you for pushing the boundary on what's possible. You designing the app how you've designed really does help other designers in other places push for the right thing, to say that, it's not just problem solving. We need to make the customer feel something. And that extra 10% of effort that differentiates what you do, that takes so much time and effort. It's really hard for designers to justify it. To just see somebody doing that and pushing the boundaries, it really does help the ecosystem. So thanks for doing that, man.
Thanks, man. It's all the. I want to mention one thing, Abhinit. Thanks for bringing this up. I think a lot of us designers to look at retention as an important measure. Like, to be very honest, the small things that you do may not reflect on your funnel. Like, the biggest issue is like when you reduce your design interventions purely from a funnel standpoint, from a quantitative conversion standpoint, a micro animation will seem like an extravagant, non-necessary step. But if you look at the person's M6 retention, you look at his M5 retention, if you generally look at his LTV, if you look at his other hooks that he is using on the product, you would understand that there are things that you did that contributed to it. It's almost like a good waiter at a restaurant. Like, you wouldn't know what contributed to you going back there. You will not be able to pinpoint to that. But that is also the other thing about doing these things which are not directly measurable. To your point, like, pushing for these interventions in design, again, comes from our own learnings in real life, right? Like, in terms of what are the things that we remember when we go back to a place. Why do we go back to a place? Like, if it was only the most objectively measurable thing, a lot of businesses wouldn't be running like how they are running money of us. So I would advise young designers to and how are you helping retain your customers? Yeah, sorry, Abhinit, I interrupted.
No. Yeah, and on this measurability thing, I love measuring things as well. I'm a programmer too, and I like to quantify as much as possible. But beyond the point, when you know that doing this and shipping this out would be faster than actually measuring and objectifying everything, you need to stop, right? And Ajay, that's a good segue because that's my question to you, right? Like, one thing I want to know
I should have not allowed this.
Yeah, what I want to know is, like, from the moment that I stepped in to Gojek, right? I work with clients, right? And I've worked with CEOs who want to control exactly what the icon would be and where it would be placed, right? Where they have zero knowledge of graphic design or design or whatsoever. But the moment I stepped in Gojek, I felt I got a lot of creative freedom. And there are a lot of designers out there and a lot of companies who can do much more, but they aren't allowed to because there's really no risk for them to take, right? Like, literally, like, you as a designer, you can't even risk 5% of a conversion for even the 6 weeks period that it takes for a customer to learn the behavior, right? What made you give that creative freedom, and what advice would you give to founders, right? Just let the creative people be creative.
So if you remember, Abhinit, we had this WhatsApp group called Human Design at some point of time.
Yep.
The thing is, a lot of time people do not understand that it takes ideas, iteration, and you can't time limit them. Somehow, I had experienced this in my past life as well, that you cannot limit ideas and expression. You cannot limit creativity. We cannot time bound them. And to get across, and to our founders' credit, then when we explained this to them, they kind of understood it as well. And that's where I personally have never went and told a designer or told anybody saying, I want this done in a week. I said, I want this done. And anybody who actually tried to put timelines, I always said, no, let them work. Let them come back with 3 or 4 options. We shouldn't go with the first option. Also, most of the time what happens is people forget that creativity and constraints do not go together. As I like what Harish said. Harish said and it should be regulated later on. And that is something I always believe. If you notice within engineering also, there has been so many times we had this debate, and we never commit for a timeline while we will meet the timeline. And the reason I don't commit for timeline, it's not about like people can have as much freedom as they want. There is a leeway, right? But especially design or product thinking or research, these are the things which should be reasonable but shouldn't be time bound. I personally believe that, and that's where you had that leeway or that freedom. It is not that we gave you that freedom; it's that you deserve that freedom. Every designer deserves that freedom. Nobody can work creatively if you put them under time constraint. So I personally believe that, and that's what we did all over the place.
How do you make other founders understand this?
How do I make other founders understand? Like whoever's listening to me, they can come and talk to me. And if somebody is facing this problem, they can actually make me introduce me to their founders, and I can take them through a bunch of steps. Because you can't replicate designers, you can't replicate thinking, you can't replicate thought process, you can't replicate visualization. The only thing. So I'll leave with this one comment, and then I'll let Divya take over from here. Look, the difference between apes and humans is that humans can copy. Humans can copy perfectly. But the problem is, you can keep looking at me and learn typing. I can keep looking at Harish and learn how to move the mouse. Or you can keep looking at some painter and learn to draw as well. But you cannot copy the thought process. The only way you can copy thought process is working closely with somebody. And that is the reason I actually created that Human Design WhatsApp group, where you will come with iterations week on week, week on week, week on week. You will be part of the journey. So I would say, to make founders understand, make them part of your journey. Tell them what is going on. Tell them how are we evolving. How are we iterating imperfections? That was the talk title. How are we iterating imperfections while we are creating perfections for the week, but we are iterating imperfections over the weeks? So that's what the summary is, Abhinit. Nothing more. I don't have anything else. It's just persuasion and show them the process or show them the journey.
All right, I'll take it.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Divya, up to you. We are done today.
All right. Thank you so much for this brilliant session. I think it's 30 minutes over, but we can still keep going on, keep talking about all the amazing things. There's still a lot of questions. We'll get to you people. I want to take this opportunity to sort of introduce something new that we're launching at Creators of Products. There is a new design series that we'll be launching. It is not just for designers, it's for everyone. So the idea behind the series is that each session, there will be an expert who would come in from the ecosystem and talk about specific topics. Each session will be targeted to different set of users, could be founders, PMs, engineers, tech leaders, and as well as designers. So we'll be launching this soon. So if you love this session, keep watching, follow us on Twitter and Slack. We'll be announcing it soon, and there's a lot more coming for you in terms of design. So with that, I want to say a huge thank you to Harish and Abhinit. Thank you so much for taking out time to do this for us. And as always, Ajey sir, thank you so much for bringing everyone together to give us this marvelous session. There's so much to think about that you've left us with so many thoughts right now. I think there'll be a lot of follow-up questions coming your way. So folks, please go follow them on Twitter. They're pretty active. And yeah, that's all. I hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot for actually coming. It means a lot for me. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us here.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.